Harrison Bergeron is a satirical and dystopian science fiction short story written by Kurt Vonnegut and first published in October 1961. Originally published in the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, the story was republished in the author's Welcome to the Monkey House collection in 1968. The story was written as a satire to offer a critique on people's claims that we should all be equal. It has been embraced by those critical of egalitarianism as an allegory of caution against socially enforced equality, more specifically the dangers of enforcing equality by virtue of leveling. Plot: in the year 2081, amendments to the Constitution dictate that all Americans are fully equal and not allowed to be smarter, better looking, or more physically able than anyone else. The handicapper general's agents enforce the equality laws, forcing citizens to wear handicaps masks for those who are too beautiful, radios inside the ears of intelligent people, and heavyweights for the strong or athletic. One April, 14-year-old Harrison Bergeron, an intelligent and athletic teenager, is taken away from his parents, George and Hazel Bergeron, by the government. They are barely aware of the tragedy, as Hazel has average intelligence, and George has a handicap radio installed by the government to regulate his above-average intelligence. Hazel and George watch ballet on TV. They comment on the dancers, who are weighed down to counteract their gracefulness and masked to hide their attractiveness. George's thoughts are continually interrupted by the different noises emitted by his handicap radio, which piques Hazel's curiosity and imagination regarding handicaps. Noticing his exhaustion, Hazel urges George to lie down and rest his handicap bag, 47 pounds of weights locked around George's neck. She suggests taking a few of the weights out of the bag, but George resists, aware of the illegality of such an action. On TV, a news reporter struggles to read the bulletin and hands it to the ballerina wearing the most grotesque mask and heaviest weights. She begins reading in her unacceptably natural, beautiful voice, then apologizes before switching to a more unpleasant voice. Harrison's escape from prison is announced, and a full-body photograph of Harrison is shown, indicating that he is 7 feet tall and burdened by 300 pounds of handicaps. George recognizes his son for a moment, before having the thought eliminated by his radio. Harrison himself then storms the studio in an attempt to overthrow the government. He calls himself the Emperor and rips off all of his handicaps, along with the handicaps of a ballerina who he proclaims his Empress. He orders the musicians to play, promising them royalty if they do their best. Unhappy with their initial attempt, Harrison takes control for a short while, and the music improves. After listening and being moved by the music, Harrison and his Empress dance while flying to the ceiling, then pause in mid-air to kiss. Diana Moon Glampers, the handicapper general, enters the studio and kills Harrison and the Empress with a shotgun. She forces the musicians to put on their handicaps, and the television goes dark. George, unaware of the televised incident, returns from the kitchen and asks Hazel why she was crying, to which she replies that something sad happened on TV that she cannot remember. He comforts her and they return to their average lives. Characters: Harrison Bergeron is the 14-year-old son, who is 7 feet tall, a genius, and an extraordinarily handsome, athletic, strong and brave person. He wants to live as an unimpeded human being and does not want to obey the laws of the government, which has taken on the responsibility of creating equality for the whole American society. He has been jailed by the handicapper general's office for planning to overthrow the government. To eliminate any unfair advantages, the handicapper general forces him to wear the most extreme handicaps reflecting his extraordinary attributes, huge earphones and spectacles intended to make him half-blind and give him tremendous headaches, disfiguring makeup in the form of blackened teeth and a red rubber nose to mask his extraordinary looks, and so many weights to compensate his prodigious strength that they make him look more like a junkyard than a man. When he escapes from jail, the government describes him as a genius and an athlete, and tells people that he should be regarded as extremely dangerous. When Harrison enters the television studio, he is convinced that he can overthrow the government and declares, "I am the Emperor. Do you hear? I am the Emperor. Everybody must do what I say at once." In addition to this talent and egotism, he also possesses artistic and romantic characteristics. he sings and dances with his empress, defying gravity while doing so. Tragically, despite Harrison's superior physical prowess and intellectual faculties, he is stopped when the handicapper general, Diana Moon Glampers, shoots him and his empress down with a shotgun. George Bergeron is Harrison's father and Hazel's husband. A very smart and sensitive character, he is handicapped artificially by the government. Like his son, he has to wear mental handicap earphones in his ears to keep him from thinking intensely and analytically. Because he is stronger than average, he has to wear weights around his neck. When his wife Hazel suggests that he could take these weights off for a while to relax, he rejects the idea. He wants to obey the laws and is unwilling to risk punishment for a little comfort. He believes that the situation in 2081 is better than it had been back in the days when fierce competition reigned in society. He has much respect for the rules and represents the common passive citizen who does not critique a government that manipulates individuals. Obeying the rules, he is even incapable of recognizing the tragic situation when his son has been shot to death, a harsh critique of passiveness towards authority. Hazel Bergeron is Harrison's mother and George's wife. Hazel has what is described as perfectly average intelligence, which means that she cannot think deeply about anything. However, she is a well-intentioned character, a loving wife and mother, who tries to comfort her husband by suggesting he removes his handicap weights. She cries when she sees what happens to her son, but due to her impaired faculties quickly forgets the subject of her sorrow. In the end, all her kindness counts for nothing as her stupidity outruns her good intentions. Hazel has much in common with the handicapper general, Diana Moon Glampers. Ballerina, a beautiful dancer who was burdened with an especially ugly mask and excessive weights, as she is the fairest, most beautiful and most graceful of the dancers. She reads an announcement card after the stammering announcer is unable to. It is likely, but not stated, that she is the same dancer who Harrison Bergeron takes as his empress, who is later shot by Diana Moon Glampers for not wearing her handicaps, and dancing with Harrison Bergeron. Diana Moon Glampers, despite appearing in person for only 4 sentences, represents the oppressive government and enforces the handicapping policies of the government. It is mentioned early on that Hazel resembles Diana, and Hazel mentions improvements she would make to Diana's handicap regulations. She appears ruthless when she kills Harrison and his empress without warning, and threatens the musicians with a similar fate before the broadcast is interrupted, leaving their future ambiguous. Diana's first and middle names are possibly a reference to Diana, the Roman huntress, virgin goddess of the moon. Style: here, Vonnegut is influenced by his early work as a journalist. His sentences are short and easily understood so as to be largely accessible. A dystopian setting enhances his social and political critique by imagining a future world founded on absolute equality through handicaps assigned to various above-average people to counter their natural advantages. A similar subject can be found in L.P. Hartley's dystopian novel Facial Justice from the previous year of 1960. Yet Vonnegut also punctuates his dystopia with humor. Even the most horrifying scenes are underlined by jokes or absurdity. When the news announcer is supposed to read a news bulletin, he has to hand it to a nearby ballerina because of his speech impediment, and the ballerina then alters her voice to a grackle squawk, because it would be unfair to use her natural voice, described as a warm, luminous, timeless melody. This absurdity highlights the madness of the world of Harrison Bergeron. Parallels with the Sirens of Titan, a similar dystopian society to that of Harrison Bergeron, appears in Vonnegut's 1959 novel The Sirens of Titan. When the space wanderer returns to Earth, he finds a society in which handicaps are used to make all people equal, eradicating the supposedly ruinous effects of blind luck on human society. The narrator claims that now the weakest and the meekest were bound to admit, at last, that the race of life was fair. The strong are burdened with handicaps, and the beautiful hide their advantageous appearance through frumpish clothes, bad posture, chewing gum and a ghoulish use of cosmetics. Unlike in Harrison Bergeron, the citizens in the Sirens of Titan choose to wear these handicaps voluntarily as an act of faith towards the Church of God the utterly indifferent, although it is suggested that not to do so would invite social condemnation. there are no handicaps for above-average intelligence mentioned in the Sirens of Titan. The Society of Harrison Bergeron addresses differences in intellectual and cognitive ability and their entailing advantages. Adaptations. The story has been adapted for the screen at least 4 times. PBS adapted several stories, including Harrison Bergeron, In Between Time and Timbuktu, with Vonnegut in the title role. In 1995, Showtime produced a full-length made-for-television adaptation entitled Harrison Bergeron, starring Sean Astin as the title character. The adaptation diverged from the plot considerably, featuring Harrison being recruited by the National Administration Center, a secret cabal of geniuses within the government to ensure that the handicapped America functions. Working for the television division, Harrison becomes dissatisfied with the status quo and attempts to start another American revolution by taking over the nation's television broadcasting. He broadcasts old unhandicapped movies and music, while encouraging people to remove their brain handicapping bands on their heads. In 2006, a short film also entitled Harrison Bergeron was released. It received direct praise from Vonnegut himself, who said, "I am glad to see the appropriate measures taken with my story." In 2009, another short film called 2081 was based on the original story and starred Armie Hammer as the title character. Joe Crow, managing editor of the online magazine Revolution Science Fiction, described the movie as stirring and dramatic, and said it gets right to the point, and nails the adaptation in about 25 minutes. In the real world, in 2005 the story was quoted by attorneys in a brief before the Kansas Supreme Court. Vonnegut was quoted as saying that while he did not mind the story being used in the suit, he disagreed with the lawyer's interpretation of it. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia quoted the story in PGA Tour, Incorporated v. Martin. See also, crab mentality, dumbing down, Janty law, procrasts, tall poppy syndrome, Between Time and Timbuktu, a PBS adaptation of several Vonnegut stories, including this one. References. Further reading, Klinkowitz, Jerome, Vonnegut in fact. The Public Spokesman of Personal Fiction. Columbia, University of South Carolina Press, Leeds, Mark, The Vonnegut Encyclopedia. An authorized compendium. Westport, London, Greenwood Press, Leeds, Mark. Reed, Peter J. The Vonnegut Chronicles. Interviews and Essays. Westport, London, Greenwood Press, Peterson, Bo, The World According to Kurt Vonnegut. Moral Paradox and Narrative Form. Abo University. External links, Harrison Bergeron at the Internet Movie Database, 2081 at the Internet Movie Database. The Politics of Kurt Vonnegut's OE Harrison Bergeron a critical essay by Daryl Hattenha, Kurt Vonnegut, Harrison Bergeron, and an Introduction to Deviance and Social Control a teaching-related essay by Kenneth Mentler, Analysis of Harrison Bergeron on Literary Act.